Hello and welcome. Gather round the fire with Lehigh Valley Passport to History's Partners Winter Program Series. We'll be sharing tales of Valley history that will transport you back in time from the comfort of your living room or wherever you're watching this tonight. This virtual series is hosted by me, Lehigh Valley Would Love Media's George Wacker, and will feature a different theme and discussion from the night's host museums. Lehigh Valley Passport to History is a partnership of historic sites and resources in and around Pennsylvania's Lehigh and Northampton counties. Let our group connect you with historical activities, events, tours, and exhibitions throughout the valley. From museums to research archives to little-known architectural gems off the beaten path, we invite you to use this website, to explore the rich heritage that is right around the corner. And I want to bring myself in here for a second. Everybody, hello and welcome. We were here last month. I'm excited to be back for January 14th episode of Lehigh Valley Passport to History's Winter Series. Tonight, we have Cabinet of Curiosities Guess That Artifact. There are a couple in here. We're really hoping that some of you guess in the Facebook chat. So if you can, comment in there, and I'm going to do my best to bring it up because there's some in here that you're definitely not, or at least I couldn't get. So hopefully you can. It'll be interesting. So we're opening our attic treasure chest to share some of the most curious objects in our collections. What stories do they tell? Participants tonight include the Liberty Bell Museum, Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles, and the Shelter House in Emmaus. I want to bring in first Jane Malfair of the Shelter House in Emmaus. Jane, welcome. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
So, Jane, thank you so much for joining us. I wanted to give you the opportunity to tell people about the Shelter House for those who maybe aren't familiar. If you go ahead.
Yes, the Shelter House is a Germanic-style colonial log cabin. It was erected in 1734. And this is a little aside and an anecdote. We often get people coming into our driveway saying, "Can you put us up for the night?" And we say, "What?" And they find our name online called the Shelter House, and they think that we're a home for homeless people. So that's just an aside. We are not. We're a house museum. And as I said, the cabin was built in 1734. And it is owned by the borough of Emmaus, but it is maintained by our Shelter House Society, which has been incorporated since the early 1950s. And we look after the maintenance and we look after our membership, and we are membership driven. And that's how we pay for our events and do the things that we do to maintain the Shelter House proper. We are, how much longer would you like me to speak about our Shelter House?
I'm sorry, I was muting myself. I was going to ask you, what is some of the history of the Shelter House? When was it built? What was it originally used for?
Well, we don't know exactly, but its German name is Zufluchthaus, which translates loosely into place of shelter. And if you think about it, in 1734, we were still subjects of King George III, and this was an unsettled area, and the settlers who came here had nothing. And so, I mean, they had no telephones, they had no newspapers, and who knows what danger might have lurked about. So we are thinking, although we have no hard proof, that the Shelter House was built because it was outside of the village. Well, the village of Emmaus was just a settlement. It wasn't even a village, but it was outside of the parameters of that settlement at the time. And so if people needed to seek shelter, they might have come to this log structure that was up on the side of South Mountain.
So if they did have Google in the 1700s, they might have been there. Yeah. So tonight is all about
for sure.
Tonight is all about our Cabinet of Curiosities. So I don't know if we're going to get any comments, but I wanted to try here. So I'm going to bring up this first one. Let me get this out of here.
Okay.
Now, I want to wait. I'll see if anybody can guess this. Now, this isn't the best picture. Wait. Okay.
Do you have it?
Oh. I apologize.
There you have.
I had a technical error there for a second.
Okay.
All right.
While you're trying to get it,
well, go ahead. Tell us what
I can tell you that. There we go. Well, it's called a flail, and it's made of wood, and it's in two parts, and it is its connector is made of leather thong material. Of course, it's hand carved, and it was an agricultural tool. And as you know, the early settlers who came here through the port of Philadelphia, walking because they had no horses, they had to just either carry with them what they needed in order to homestead, or they needed to know how to make the implements. So the implements that I'm going to show you are in the collection of the shelter house, and they are agricultural in theme. And this flail is a grain flail. It's in two parts. And if we were to pick it up, there may be a photo there of the curator holding it up. And what they would do is flail the grain to take the for instance, wheat off the stalk so that they could begin to clean it and get it ready to go to the mill.
Okay, I have another one here. I think we'll have better luck with this one.
Okay, this is the second step of what would happen after it's the third step actually after the grain has been cut, which you haven't shown yet, and the flail has taken the heads off the stalk. Then we put the grain heads into this. It looks like a sieve, and actually it is a sieve. It's made of bamboo. And the person using it would shake it until all of the debris and the chaff and the dirt and whatever would fall through. And what would be left in the sieve that you see would be heads of grain that is going to be taken then to the miller.
And these objects, I mean, obviously you found them there. Do they give any more kind of clues to the history?
We acquired most of the artifacts inside the shelter house from some other person. Although we do know that the three artifacts that I'm showing you tonight are of the colonial era. I have no idea, nor does our curator, of the provenance of these pieces.
I would imagine it'd be somewhat difficult to keep a provenance for some of these.
Yeah, I know, and they're not signed as we know.
Well, we have one more, and I have to be honest, I did not know what this was.
We have two flails, and they are these are the two that we have. You saw one of them on that other picture because we took it down from the wall to show it to the camera. But here are the two that we have displayed within the shelter house. Just as you walk in, you will see them hanging on the end of the fireplace. And this is the way they are displayed inside the shelter house.
Okay, and I want to give this opportunity, and unfortunately we only have about 30 minutes or so. We have two more guests to get to because this is fascinating. But can you tell us a little bit about the shelter house? Is it open now for tours? How can people find out more information?
Well, the shelter house, as I said, is maintained by a society, and we have 4 events throughout the year. The most important one is called the Patriots' Day Dinner, and it has a long history, like from the very beginning of our society, which was formed in the early 1950s. The members of the Shelter House Society would get together at different places around Emmaus and celebrate the real Patriots' Day from our patriot ancestors. And so we would have a dinner, we would have a speaker, and then we would sing patriotic songs, and then we would make a toast to General Washington, President Washington, and then we would pledge allegiance to the flag, and we would leave feeling very patriotic and very happy to be part of the Shelter House Society. And so that's our major event of the year. It happens in the spring toward the end of April, which is when the original Patriots' Day was. We have our annual membership picnic, which happens in August on the grounds of the shelter house. Everybody brings a covered dish, and everybody sits around and talks about old times. And sometimes we have a program. Other times our resident curator will just give us an update on what's going on at the shelter house. Recently, we've had some interesting things, like we finished the historic spring house on the grounds, and we finished the cellar door project that had been going on for quite a while. This is the spring house that was just finished this last year. It's on the site of the original spring house. We do have a photograph of how it was. And the photograph is inside the shelter house, and this is the way we interpreted its looks and actually built the spring house. And so we have old-fashioned Christmas, which happens, of course, on the first Saturday in September, or in December, excuse me. And we open our house, we decorate the house, and we invite all of the people in. And actually, all of Emmaus is celebrating Christmas on this one particular Saturday, and that's when we have the lighting of the Christmas tree downtown in the Triangle. And the other historic houses are also open. And I might add that the shelter house is one of 3 historic houses in the village of Emmaus. We feel quite fortunate to have 3 historic houses. The shelter house is the oldest, as I said, erected in 1734. The next one is the Knaus homestead in 1777. And then the newest one is the Ehrenhardt mansion, which was built in 1803. And the village of Emmaus owns all 3 of the houses, and all 3 of those houses are maintained by society, such as the shelter house. So we take part in the old-fashioned Christmas. And lately, what we've been doing is with the under the auspices of the Heritage Alliance, which is a group of historic entities in Emmaus. The Historic Alliance has been sponsoring something called the Third Grade Education Project. Okay. And what we do is we invite all of the 3rd grade students in the East Penn School District to come to our houses, and we give them an historic program that is suitable for the period of our house. And what usually happens at the shelter house, because there was not that much history in Emmaus at the time the shelter house was built, we tell the children a story about how the people might have gotten to the site, to the shelter house site. We ask them questions about, well, how did they get to know each other? And the other historic houses do the same thing, and it's called the Third Grade Education Project. It's very popular. But of course, this year we've done none of these wonderful things.
Sure, absolutely right.
But next year, we certainly hope to continue doing.
And we have the link at the bottom, and of course, people, if they just search for Shelter House Emmaus, they're going to find all sorts of great information and how they can get more in touch. I wish we had more time, because I think we could talk about this, because I didn't know the history of this, and I'm going to look at it on my own a little bit too. So I appreciate you coming
to our website, which is shelterhouseemmaus.org. And if anybody wants to schedule a tour of the shelter house, our resident curator, Dean Bortz, is ever so happy to give that tour. And all you have to do is call him on the phone, and the number is 610-965-9258.
Okay. Jane Malfair, thank you again for educating us about the shelter house in Emmaus. Yes. And I'm looking forward to finding out more information. Thank you. Okay, we're moving right along here. This is going to be a little bit fun. I'm bringing in Reverend Josh Knapp from the Liberty Bell Museum. How are you doing tonight, Josh?
I'm doing just fine. How you doing?
You're gonna be doing better in a second. I have this for you.
Oh my gosh, that is good.
For people who are not aware, this was a Jeopardy question that was just on last week, I think. And lo and behold, a replica of course, the Liberty Bell can be seen at the Liberty Bell Museum. I imagine Jeopardy didn't check with you on that. Was it fun to see that happen, or did you get texts, or how did?
It's always fun to see that stuff. I mean, I found out about it through a text. My father-in-law texted me about it. He
I
said
got
Liberty
text
Bell
too.
made
It's on.
made
They're
Jeopardy.
talking about Allentown. That's great. So, listen, the Liberty Bell is so famous when it comes to Allentown history, Allentown Christmas history with Pip the Mouse, and it's a wonderful place that many people have visited on school trips if they're from the Lehigh Valley and beyond. But can you tell us a little bit about the Liberty Bell Museum and what's there for people maybe who haven't had the opportunity?
Sure. Well, for those of you, I'll go into a little of the history here. In the Revolutionary War, in any war, communication is key. And if you can control communication, you control the war. So when the British came in to take over a city or a town, the first thing they did was melt down the bells because that would cripple communication completely. And they did this when they came to New York City. And when they were about to come into Philadelphia, the Continental Congress made a decree to take the bells out of the city and move them to the Lehigh Valley. And the Liberty Bell came to Zion.
That doesn't seem like it would have been an easy task in that time period.
It wasn't. It's a 2,000-pound bell, first of all. So they had to use a number of simple machines to get the bell onto the wagon to get it up here. And the simple machines are the focus of our third grade program, which we do in the fall, or in the spring rather. We bring every third grade student from the Allentown School District to the museum, and to stick with the STEM curriculum, we teach them simple machines, and we have them build simple machines with Legos, like the pulley, the lever, that sort of thing. And it's sort of a fun thing. So anyway, they got the simple machines, they got it on the wagon, they covered it up with hay, and there were 250 soldiers assigned to the wagon train from George Washington's army to escort the bell to make sure that it made it safely to Allentown.
Did they just take the turnpike? Or I assume like there was the old Philadelphia Road, I think, but
I think I know the highway that it went along was in front of William Allen's house, because that was the most heavily traveled highway in North America at the time.
Wow.
So it went in front of his house and then came to the museum. And it took 3 days of traveling to get here. We think of from here to Philly as a 90-minute car ride. 3 days with the horses. And
so people are going to get a clue. I hope we get one guess on this. People are going to get a clue. You just got a clue for what this object may or may not be. I'm going to put it on here. And for those who are looking at this, we're looking at the object right in the middle, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we ignore everything on the outside. We're looking at the one in the middle. I don't know if we're going to get any comments, but so besides this, what are some of the other objects that you have at the Liberty Bell Museum, or what are maybe some of the highlights of the artifacts in addition to this one?
Well, we have Hess's is big with us, so of course we have some old Hess's boxes and things like that. We have the Pip the Mouse stage. We have Allentown's Liberty Bell. Now, Allentown's Liberty Bell is an interesting story. It was cast in 1769 by a man named Tomaroff. It's the bell that was in the church when the Liberty Bell, in Zion's church, while the Liberty Bell was under the floorboards. And while we're not really sure whether or not the Liberty Bell actually rung when they were signing the Declaration of Independence, what we do know is that when the Declaration of Independence was read in Allentown, the Allentown's Liberty Bell was rung.
And that bell is now currently
Allentown's Liberty Bell.
That bell is now at the Liberty Bell Museum as well.
That bell is in the Liberty Bell Museum as well. That's a pretty cool story. We have, as far as artifacts go, we have an old musket. Two old muskets, actually. One's a replica, one's actually from the time. And it's not the one you see in the picture there. That's a Civil War musket.
Oh, listen, we're no guesses, but that's fine.
From the first Defenders, which is the first unit to go to the Capitol to defend it during the Civil War. They left from the steps of Zion's Church. So they're called the First Defenders. So we got some pretty cool stuff there.
Absolutely. And now we're gonna get I'll tell you what my guess was. I know what this is because I had to read it and upload it. I would have guessed that this is some sort of fire tong, but it is not. So can you tell us what this artifact is, and then tell us a little bit about it, if you could?
Oh, okay. So the wagon was the story goes that there were two wagons that the bell was put on.
Okay.
The first one was John Jacob Mickley's wagon. And his wagon broke down in Bethlehem on its way to Allentown. And they transferred it to a man by the name of Frederick Leeser's wagon. And this is part of the brake handle from Frederick Leeser's wagon.
How would that? Well, let me bring it back up here. So the handle, I'm assuming that the top of it there is like the lever, so you would pull that back. I mean, I don't know if you know exactly how it would be used, but
yes,
that's
accurate.
So what is again with everything that's going on health wise? It's not as easy to open our doors. Jane was talking about that with some of the events that they've been unable to do. But what is Liberty Bell Museum doing now? What are your plans, or is there anything that you'd like to highlight?
Well, despite the COVID restrictions, we were able to still do our Pip the Mouse this year. We did it on PPL Plaza, and people could stand outside. So that was kind of cool. We're always shut down in January to do inventory on the gift shop and things like that. So this is our shutdown month anyway, and it looks like we're going to be able to open up on February 1st by appointment only.
Okay. So is that something where when February rolls around, so if people are interested to just contact you directly?
You can call the museum, 610-435-4232. Our website, unfortunately, is down right now, but you can contact us through our Facebook page.
Okay. So search.
And we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Okay. Josh, I again would love to sit here and talk about the Liberty Bell Museum, and Pip the Mouse is one of my I have a 4-year-old who has now been introduced to Pip the Mouse, so I think she's officially a Lehigh Valley resident. My 5-year-old
loves it too.
Yeah. So it's fantastic. So Josh, sit tight. We have one more. I'm really excited about our next guest as well. I'm gonna bring her in. Josh, thank you so much. Hey. Hello, Kendra. We have Kendra.
Hello.
From the Boyertown Museum of Historical Vehicles. Thank you for being so patient and hanging in there.
No problem. It was interesting.
From the Boyertown Museum of Historical Vehicles, I'm going to have to embarrassingly say I have not been there. So can you educate me, please? I've been to America on Wheels in Allentown, which is fantastic.
Yes, it is.
You guys are just as great. So can you give me some more information?
Yeah, so the Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles is a road transportation museum. So we have cars and we have trucks. We also have carriages and motorcycles and bicycles, and almost everything that we have was built in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Which is like a really cool twist on it, because we have some makes of cars and trucks that people have just not really ever heard of before.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to go right into this because I still don't know what this is. And
we do have smaller things too on display. We're not all vehicles, so that's what I chose tonight.
So this is, before we give, I want people to kind of have an opportunity here to take a look at it if they want to guess what it is. But yeah, this is something that you just, like at first, it looked like something like from an old grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
Here, I can move in a little bit. But then, okay, you put the dots together, right? The historical vehicles, and then it looks like that's a turn signal. Am I getting warm or?
Yeah, you're getting there, sort of.
Okay.
It doesn't. It does. It does sometimes involve turning.
Okay. Well, how about? I think you said you even have one there.
I do with me. I have
Bring that. Well, that way we can talk about it while you hold it. And it looks a lot bigger than the picture. Yeah, the picture does not do it justice.
It's funny because there's a couple different models of these. This one, the one I sent you a picture of, is still sitting in our case. We think that was a salesman's model because it's all mounted. Yeah. So this is one that was a little different. It sounds a little heftier than that one that I showed you.
What is this thing?
So this is called a Chadwick automatic road guide. So,
okay.
Yeah, what this does is this will hook up to your speedometer cable. It's tuned to one of the front wheels of your automobile. And there's a disc in here.
Okay.
You can see. Now, this is a big one. The one that you had a photo of, the discs are probably about CD or like DVD size. These discs are a little bigger, but there's a metal disc in here, and it's got all these little pinholes in it. So as you're driving, your cable is moving the disc because it's going with the rotation of your wheel, and as the holes go over, pins release in the holes, and that sets off a directional signal up here in these glass windows. So we've got turn right, turn left, veer right, veer left. The D is for danger, so a dangerous road. This one is my favorite. It looks like a paddle, and it means speed trap. So this was about 1911. So yes, they were concerned about speed traps in 1911.
When you push that button, what happens? I mean, not now, but like in theory. So
the disc, you could either buy a disc that had a route already programmed into it. For instance, we have.
It tells you where to go. So if you could put the disc in if you were at a certain location to begin, and then it would take you your end location.
Yes. So we have discs. The ones that we have in our display case would take you from Pottstown to Delaware Water Gap and back. So you could buy, Reading to Allentown or Pottstown to Philadelphia or whatever. Now, you could also buy blank discs and make your own route. And that's where these buttons come in. Because then as you turn left, you could punch the button and it would make a hole in the disc.
I've never heard of that device before. That's amazing. Like, that's so interesting.
Yeah, 1911. So that's pretty early.
They were trying to do Waze even back in 1911. I mean, it's the same. It's the same concept. It's just
it's turn by turn. It's not very good at recalculating though, so you really have to follow the instructions.
And I would imagine that some of those roads don't exist anymore, or so.
I would imagine so. And there were a lot of different ways that people, would find their way around. One of the methods, they called them blue books. Now we think of Blue Book, Kelly Blue Book, tells you the value of your car, but there were things called blue books, and they were turn by turn directions. And it'd be for like a certain, like the New England part of the United States. So you'd buy the New England version and it would tell you all these different routes. And if you read them, the routes are really like crazy. You'd never follow it today. It's, turn left at the Red Barn.
And with the danger button, like watch out for no road here for 5
probably a washed out road.
That is so. I'm going to go down a Wikipedia rabbit hole this evening, I think. Again, I could talk about that forever. Could you at least tell us a little bit more about the Boyertown Museum? Again, like obviously with COVID, things have been a little bit different. I want to find out more about you. How do people do that?
Well, we are as of January 4th. You know, we had the temporary shutdown there, but we did open back up for walk-in traffic. We're open 7 days a week,
Okay.
9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Our big events are kind of on hold right now, but if you just want to walk in and visit, that's cool. We're here. We're here.
All right. Well, I want to bring everybody back in, so don't be surprised, guys. Got Gene hung in there. I just want to say thank you to all of you guys for taking the time to do this. This is always a lot of fun. I kind of want to do this again because I would love to do it where I just get the photos ahead of time, so I'm not able to read about what they are because I never would have figured out any of them, I don't think. So Jane, Kendra, Josh, thank you so much for coming on. And on behalf of Lehigh Valley Passport to History, I want to invite everybody to visit their site, lvhistory.org. Be sure to search Lehigh Valley Passport to History on Google, visit them on social media. And I'm looking forward, I'll be back again next month. And I'm looking forward to checking out all the information that you guys gave me. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.